So, the end of the Age of Revelation is finally upon us. But can Cyclops and the X-Men save this future mutant dystopia before it's too late?
What do they call you? Wheels?
Hey everyone, it's Wheels here with a new video all about the finale of the Age of Revelation event. If you've been watching my channel for the past few months, then you'll know that this is a long time coming after I've done several live streams covering everything to do with Age of Revelation. So join me as I break down the story, explain the twists, and tell you exactly what this means for the future of the X-Men. Now before we get into the issue itself, don't worry if you haven't read anything past the first Overture issue, because I'm going to tell you all the important things that have happened since then. So, past Cyclops, past Beast, and the remaining X-Men managed to evade the Angel of Death, who is secretly under the control of Revelation, and they run into the Darkchild and her Limbo Lands, where Psylocke, the Seraphim captain, also escaped to. Past Cyclops defeats the Demon Sorceress, and we learn that the actual plan of the future X-Men was to send the future versions of Cyclops and Beast to the past so that they could stop Revelation before he could do anything. True Days of Future Past style, meaning that past Scott and Hank are low-key redundant. Psylocke reveals Revelation's big evil plan, that the X-Virus was his creation, and that over time this disease has linked every living thing to each other, so ultimately everything and everyone will merge together into one giant organism. She then rejoins the team, and Cyclops inspires them all to try and stop Revelation. So the X-Men sneak into Philadelphia and meet up with their other agent, tech genius WizKid. Meanwhile, with Revelation, he recruits a new chorister, a young girl known as Albecca, to replace Topaz. However, a jealous and ambitious Fabian Cortez tries to kill her so that he would become even more important. This fails as Albecca is rescued by a ghostly Kitty Pryde, and in turn she kills Fabian herself, because in a twist, Albecca is actually an Iraqi spy, sent by Apocalypse and his right-hand man Charles Xavier. While she ultimately dies trying to assassinate Doug, she does manage to complete her main goal. Using Cortez's body, Albecca opens a Krakoan gate which Apocalypse, Charles Xavier and the armies of Araco walk through. This brings us directly to X-Men Age of Revelation finale, written by Jed MacKay with art by Ryan Stegman. The book opens, as mentioned, with Charles Xavier and Apocalypse walking through a Krakoan gate together, an obvious reference to the House of X cover, along with the armies of Araco. Charles has returned to Earth after 10 years away.
It's been 84 years.
See the crossover X-Manhunt for more on that, and needs a moment to gather himself. But as Apocalypse states, they're marching to war, so a moment is all that he will get. Revelation, the former New Mutant Cypher, looks on at the incoming battle, feeling like this is the boss fight in a game. He is a little self-aware here in that he doesn't think he's quite right anymore, but he has to go through with his plan. It's too far gone. Meanwhile, past Cyclops, Psylocke and Glob Herman run into the fray between the Iraqi and the Seraphim, choosing this as their moment to get close to Revelation. They stop in their tracks as they come across the Angel of Death surrounded by dead bodies. But he's not actually that anymore. In the last Wolverine miniseries, Heather Hudson had chopped his arm off with the Muramasa blade, a sword that stops healing factors, and the pain of all that freed Logan from Revelation's control. Heather, Nightcrawler and Leonard the Wendigo then sacrificed themselves to give him time to escape. And now he has returned for revenge. Scott empathizes and the pair embrace. Aww. With the fighting happening in the streets, deep below Philadelphia, the remaining X-Men, past Beast, Animalia, Swordschild and WizKid are all preparing the means to time travel again, returning the past Cyclops and Beast and vice versa. Swordschild is desperate to be amongst the fighting, but as WizKid explains, his black hole ability is necessary for them to return the X-Men's consciousnesses. Animalia, who is there for moral support I suppose, remains confident that future Cyclops and her Beast will have stopped Revelation in the past.
That's suspicious.
Back to N7, he storms into the battle, challenging his heir to face him, whilst Charles goes to the astral plane to better understand what else Doug has been using, only to be confronted by Quentin Quire. And so, a psychic battle, just like when they fought 10 years ago, commences. They are once again, as Omegas, basically matched, though Xavier naively thinks he still has the upper hand with his experience. That is until Quire reveals his own students, the Omega Kids, who overwhelm Professor X, and he literally drops dead. Apocalypse is disappointed, but he has little time to reflect, as then he is immediately confronted by the new quartet of X-Men. He clarifies that he is on their side and here to stop Revelation's goal of turning all of Earth into one giant entity. But Logan just blames him for it all. And to be fair, he's right. If only he'd picked Richter instead. They don't have time to continue this conversation, however, as Revelation makes his big entrance alongside Quentin Quire and his two remaining choristers, Chance and Cora of the Burning Heart. Doug uses his Bene Gesserit voice and commands everyone to freeze, which they do. Revelation takes this moment to monologue his thought process, explaining that he created the X-Virus as a way to turn everyone into mutants so there wouldn't be a need for a species war. However, it didn't work perfectly and millions of people died.
Oops.
He has been struggling with that ever since, but it did put things into perspective. Nothing he could do would ever be as heinous as that, so things became easier. And now he has to succeed, otherwise all those deaths would have been for nothing. I think this actually goes a long way to justify why Doug has become so evil.
He's an awful man, evil beyond measure.
And I buy it. He tried doing something to complete his mission without anyone dying, and then in the process accidentally killed millions upon millions of people instead. So that just drove him a bit crazy, and he's been trying to make those deaths matter ever since. Cyclops interrupts Revelation and knocks him down with an optic blast. The Heir of Apocalypse tries to use his voice control on him, but as Scott explains, his consciousness is out of phase with this reality, so it doesn't work. This doesn't make any sense and is a clear example of plot armor, but it's comic books, so whatever. Having disrupted Revelation, Cyclops says the famous line, "To me, my X-Men," and the remaining characters are freed and rush to attack once more. Scott fires another unrelenting blast against Doug, who withstands it, but orders Quentin to kill the X-Men's leader. However, Glob shoots at his former friend, keeping Quire busy just long enough for Cannon to swoop in and decapitate him. By this point, Revelation is badly wounded and outnumbered, but makes one last-ditch effort and commands everyone who hears this to kill. Gladly complying, Apocalypse and Wolverine do their very own fastball special and Logan guts Doug, and then stabs him again and again and again. N7 stops him from killing his heir outright and announces his disappointment, but believes that he can unmake what Revelation has done. Unfortunately, the big villain of this event has one final revelation. He actually wanted Apocalypse to be here. He allowed Bay to send that message, allowed Albecca to create that gate to Araco, because in order for the X-Virus to completely spread across the globe, there needs to be a critical amount of mutant biomass on Earth. And Apocalypse and the mutant armies of Araco have brought just enough to reach that. Bleeding out, Doug Ramsey thanks his master for helping him complete his plan. And with that, large tentacles rise out of the ground and begin to consume everything and everyone. Past Cyclops believes that they can still save the day, but Past Beast is not so confident and orders Schwarzschild to begin the time travel process. He explains that this is not a situation where they win, but rather a warning that they need to take back with them. Scott struggles with this as it's not fair, whilst Hank admits to Animalia that she has shown him something about a version of himself that he won't forget.
That's suspicious.
Past Beast says goodbye and pushes the lever, with Future Beast returning to his body. Upon seeing each other, Jenna and Hank kiss, confirming his identity. And although he's happy to see her, the X-Man is very confused as to who was in his body because the past was horrible. Animalia explains that it was him, though he wasn't exactly the bouncing, jovial beast she remembers him being. With that, Hank realizes who has been piloting his body this entire time in the future and orders Schwarzschild to open another black hole so he can send a warning back to the past. On the surface, future Cyclops returns to his body as well, and we learn that he didn't actually stop Revelation because Hank apparently didn't make it back with him. This confuses Psylocke as there was definitely somebody in Hank's body. But it's not really important anymore as, well, the world is ending. Glob hands everyone a fusion bomb so that they can go out with defiance against Revelation. And the remaining X-Men jump to their deaths into the growing biomass. As we see across the world, Phoenix, who realistically could fix this all herself, so don't think too much about that. Rogue Red, Gambit, and Spider-Man, all consumed by this new single organism. Revelation, the living planet. In a similar fashion to the end of the Age of Apocalypse, where North America is just nuked, this is another reality where the heroes don't win at the end of the day. But then we're back to the present, year 0 of the Age of Revelation to be exact, and Cyclops wakes up in a cell. He is overjoyed to hear that Hank made it back from the future as well, but Beast interrupts to clarify he never went anywhere. He actually had to restrain future Cyclops after he attacked Doug, and was even called a traitor by him. So that leaves the question, if Beast didn't travel to the future, who did? We cut to 3K, where the mysterious chairman, of all people, wakes up. He knows that it must have been so unpleasant for future Beast to be trapped in a lockdown synthetic body for a week. Now that he's back, the chairman has such interesting data to explore, including how to create the X-Virus himself. But who is the chairman? Well, it's none other than the original Hank McCoy. Yes, the Beast who first debuted in 1963 and was believed to have been killed in X-Force 48 in 2024, is actually still alive and has been leading the X-Men's newest enemy team this entire time.
Oh my god! Oh my god! The whole time you were... The whole time!
And now he knows exactly how to remake the future in 3K's image. So I thought that the Age of Revelation finale was a solid ending. McKay wraps up the plots with some nice reunions. Scott and Logan, Apocalypse versus Revelation, Quentin versus Charles. I also think Ryan Stegman's art was strong and he had some really fun splash pages throughout this issue. A big highlight for me is that this issue helped contextualize Revelation's behaviour throughout the entire event. And it makes sense to me. I also think his ultimate endgame to merge everything into one being, thereby circumventing the survival of the fittest mission, because everyone is the same, so everyone is fit, makes sense when you look at it from his perspective. Although the living planet aspect of it is kind of goofy, and I think it would have worked so much better if it was positioned more about creating a dominion, throwing back to one of the key concepts of the Krakoa era. I appreciate that the heroes don't win though. A, in a nod to Age of Apocalypse, and B, that it's different and it's not a happy ending. Not everything works out. I suppose the biggest and most interesting part of this entire story is the revelation that Past Beast is actually the chairman who is actually original War Crimes Beast who we all thought was dead after the end of Krakoa. Now that he has knowledge on the X-Virus and the future, 3K has just gotten a whole lot more dangerous, and I, for one, am interested to see how this future impacts both the X-Men and their villains in the upcoming Shadows of Tomorrow era. Ultimately, I think the core plot from Overture to Amazing X-Men to Book of Revelation into the finale was a classic and compelling future X-Men story. However, my issues are with the Age of Revelation event as a whole. Mainly that it was too bloated with 16 different miniseries. You can hear more of my thoughts on the miniseries in my Age of Revelation live streams, but essentially 16 miniseries that are largely rushed and mostly unimportant to the wider story, just really drags down and overshadows what is otherwise a compelling read. And that's my breakdown and review of the X-Men Age of Revelation finale. But what did you think about it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? How do you feel about Revelation the Living Planet? And did you expect that OG Beast reveal? Let me know down below in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to know more about what's happening next in the X-Men universe, then maybe you should think about subscribing, because I have plenty of videos coming up to go through everything that's happening in the new Shadows of Tomorrow era. And with that being said, I'll see you all in the next video.